It's a great honor to be here. You know, I was thinking as we were making our way here today, how hard it is to be a leader of any organization, but especially in education. If you're a superintendent or a director or a board member or a principal or whatever level of leadership you are in, you get all the blame for all that goes wrong and almost no credit when things go well. And recognizing that one of the hardest things that I think a superintendent has to do is work for a board. And I know because I've been a board member, elected, and in a nonprofit. I just want to say how much I appreciate what all of our educational leaders do. A round of applause to each and every one of you who is here today. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to be here. It's a bit of a homecoming. 50 years ago, I was born just a few blocks away from here at Fort Ord, when it was Fort Ord, now CSU Monterey. And it's a wonderful place that you've chosen. I said, oh yeah, they're getting a lot of work done at that resort and spa, but that's what we're going to call it, a conference. Thank you to the team at ACSA for the invitation. Edgar and others, and Wesley and others who've been working with our team to get this event to work out and timing and the schedule. Thank you to our conference chair, Pam Hernandez, and to all of the retirees who are being honored today for your service. Can we ask the retirees to please stand and quickly be acknowledged? Let us show our appreciation to all of the retirees. That's just because I saw some names that weren't on the list. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss any of them. And some of them, I live in their community, and I know they're going to be like, what's up? You noticed that all the retirees were smiling? I venture to guess why. Truly, thank you for your service. I know that there'll be many thanks throughout the day and the program. Thank you for what you do for our students throughout our state. So here's my report. I tell everybody, they say, hey, what's it like to be superintendent, And when they say it, there's always this undertone like, be careful what you ask for. Hey, you got it, huh? And I tell them the same thing. Everyone says things like, oh, you're the superintendent of public construction. Or, I tell them, you don't want me involved in any construction. And they say the same thing that I said at the outset, that you get all the blame. You don't have any oversight over any district, but you get all the blame for what happens in public education. And I told them, I accept, because I believe, and I've always believed, that education is the key for all young people, and it can save a life, and it saved mine. And I tell people, in spite of those kinds of challenges, I'm happy to be in this position. It's exactly where I wanted to be. I knew what I was walking into. Obviously, there's a lot to learn, and we have a great Chief Deputy Superintendent at the department who you'll meet today. She's doing a fireside chat, and she's here. Lupita Cortez Alcala, if you would. I'd like to acknowledge her, that she is here. She is a veteran leader who served at CDE and then went to run an agency in higher education and come back to CDE. And to me, that's important because, as you all know, CDE can be an entity unto itself. And it requires good knowledge about that organization. It also requires knowledge about how to make changes, and that's what we want to do, make some changes for the organization. And so I'm pleased to report to you that I'm, 3-4 weeks on the job, nothing broken yet, but I'm sure something will fall soon. It's been interesting to come in at a time when there have been so many strikes, when there have been challenges from disasters and other issues impacting our schools. And we at the Department of Education see our role as supporting our customers, and you all are our customers, and the students and families that you serve are our customers, and we want to make ourselves available to you. One of the first things that we will be doing is a training and a professional development on how to support school districts and county offices of education on those times when disasters occur, how to prepare for disaster, how to respond for disasters, how to bring the agencies in that can provide the support. We've gotten your messages and your emails. You can stop emailing us now. They all have started with this. How do we get our ADA back? And we understand. And so we've scheduled for a professional development to take place on March the 6th. And there'll be information coming out to your districts. You're hearing it here first. That brings together those who are experts in disaster response to provide support to our districts on how to prepare. Because unfortunately, what we're seeing is that is the era where we're living in now, that we will experience more and more disasters, and schools are impacted in unique ways. And when our educators lose their home and our students lose their home, and when we lose schools, there are things that have to be resolved. And so we hope that you all will participate in this training, this professional development, this exchange of ideas on March the 6th on how we support our districts. It's so important to me to come back to my home because this is where it all started for me. My mother was an immigrant who came here from Panama and was a teacher in San Jose. And my father emigrated all the way from Detroit, Michigan, by way of Mississippi. My father was stationed at Fort Ord, so myself and 3 siblings, we were all born at Fort Ord. And shortly after, we moved from military housing to live in San Jose. My dad was deployed to Vietnam, and so I did not see my father for many, many years until I found him on the internet, and he talked about the trauma that he experienced that kept him from reconnecting with his family. My mother raised 4 kids by herself until she could not. She was so sick. My mom had cancer, and when I was 6 years old, my mother lost her battle to cancer. And my siblings and I were all split up. 2 of my siblings remained in San Jose with a relative. My younger brother and I both got sent to live with a cousin in Philadelphia who we met for the first time when we showed up on her doorstep. I don't know about you, but I don't know if I'd have the wherewithal to have 5 and 6 years old show up at your doorstep for the first time, take them in and raise them as your sons and save their lives. And so we struggled. I was raised in a household. My cousin was essentially a single mother, and she struggled. She worked 2 jobs. She went to night school to help us, and she always talked about the value of education. And I was that student on the free lunch program, and I was embarrassed to eat the free lunch. I ate the free lunch underneath the desk because all my friends made fun of me for eating the free lunch. And when I became an adult, I realized that everyone in my school was on the free lunch program. I don't know what all the jokes were about, but when I went to the store to buy something, I went to the store with a food stamp coupon. Again, I was embarrassed, but there were times we just didn't have anything in the house. And I know some of you have heard me say this. We ate a lot of government cheese. I ate so much government cheese that I thought that USDA was a brand name. I'm certain that is not the cheese being served in today's meal. These were programs that helped my family overcome poverty, and the most important public program that I ever had the chance to participate in was getting a great public education. And I think about it every single day. I could have easily ended up in California State Prison, and instead I ended up as the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. And I believe that that's an opportunity that all 6 million of our students deserve, that regardless of your humble beginnings, that education can be a pathway for you to overcome them. And for me, I had teachers who invested in me and they doubled down on me when I struggled. They said, "We got you, we're gonna stay with you." They helped me and change the narrative of my life so that college became an opportunity, and graduate school and a 20-year career in social work and working in schools and teaching kids who are receiving their high schools in a juvenile detention facility. I want us to change the narrative that we reach a time in our history, in our future, our near future, where no young person takes their diploma behind bars. I think that we can do that in our lifetime. I think that we should educate and not incarcerate our kids and make that among our top priorities. I've had a lot of help along the way, and there are many people to thank. Many of you pulled me aside in the campaign to talk to me about real issues. And some of you are still calling me about those real issues. Karen Monroe from Alameda County, who's been a great partner, and Karen Sakata, who I know is being acknowledged today. She's the one smiling biggest because she says I'm retired. And Al Mijares and Barbara Nemko and Napa, who really talked to us about digital learning and how we use technology to help our kids. And Stacy Adler, who said that make sure the district and the department doesn't forget about small districts and rural districts and create barriers even when we provide grants to help districts. She let me know, she said we don't all have grant writers and grant departments. And she let me know that sometimes the superintendent is the grant writer and that we've got to make it possible to remove the barriers for our districts. A whole lot of people saying yes. I heard somebody over there say, amen. We hear you, and we want to keep hearing you. And when there are barriers, we want you to tell us. And if we can make those changes, we will. If we can't, we will work on them together. Because we know, as a school board member, the thing that bothered me the most was all the unfunded mandates that were passed down to us and the things that we were told to do without the resources to do it. I have never in my entire career subscribed to the notion that you can do more with less. If we ask you to do a job, we should give you the resources to do that job. And I see that as my top priority in this office. I see it as my priority, and it's what we've been doing these first few weeks, is establishing a strong relationship with our new governor. We talked to him before he put out his budget proposal. Obviously, he's someone who cares deeply about the details, and that's his budget. But we were glad to see a lot of things in that budget that we talked about, including the COLA for schools, including more money to address pensions and the rising costs of education. And so know that we see as our top priority working closely with our governor and our legislature to get you the resources that you need to support our students throughout the state. So thank you, Crystal Lamonto and others who helped us organize the roundtable to support LGBTQ students and to have a conversation about how we support our students. Thank you, Jim Brescia, who talked to me about the finances, and Jesse Ortiz and Ted Alejandre, folks who said, if you really want to know what we need, come to our communities and see for yourself. Thank you, Ted, for that invitation. We accepted then, we accept again, and we'll be back. I also want to thank someone who's been very helpful to me, not just in aspiring to this job, but throughout my entire career in public service as a city council member, as a school board member. He's been a great leader for 8 years, and we're honored that he's here today. Please help me show some appreciation to Superintendent Tom Troellickson. He still calls me up, hey, Tony, you got to do this. Hey, Tony, how about this? And I know that you were going to ask me what my North Star is and how do we achieve the California way. I appreciate your leadership and the things that we can build on and add to it. The things that are on my agenda, hopefully, are the things that are on your agenda. We must work harder to close the achievement gap. We must ensure that every young person has an opportunity to succeed. And hopefully you all will join us for our roundtable that we're doing in February during Black History Month. I've challenged myself during Black History Month to make every single day of that month something that I'm doing that's related to closing the gap for African American students. Because I don't want to do superficial things when we know that right now our students are struggling at very high rates. And we know that people are working hard to address that. But I'm going to ask you all to have hard conversations with us about equity, about implicit bias, about building a workforce that resembles our kids, about building community schools so that we have programs, mental health programs and others to help kids who are growing up in poverty and who are impacted by trauma. I'm going to ask you to have tough conversations about how we help our English learners and expand our dual language immersion programs and our dual language instruction programs so that our students, that's a great place to put your hands together. Yeah. Aplausa, por favor, aplausa. No para mí, para los estudiantes in our state. We are California. And no matter what happens in the federal government, we have to send the message that our students will be able to be well educated regardless of the neighborhood that they grow up in, their zip code, where their parents were born. that if you are in a California school, we will support you with a high-quality California education. We have to have difficult conversations about charter schools and the impact that charter schools have had. And there'll be impact and there'll be benefit. But charter school law has not been changed for 2 decades. And we have to have a conversation about where we go forward on charters, more importantly on resources. And some of you have heard me talk about the tipping point. At which point do we reach where we can no longer open any new schools without providing new resources for those schools? That's the issue for me. We have to have the resource question. Because I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of being sick and tired of hearing that our kids are funded at 45th or 46th in the nation in per pupil spending. For us in California, as the 5th wealthiest economy in the world, we have an obligation to make our kids number one. They say you show your value by what you put in your budget. And so if we say that our kids are number one, and I'm saying we collectively, California, we need to make some changes in how we fund public education. And there'll be a ballot measure in 2020 that, if passed, could add $6 billion for K-12 education and early education. There are others that are proposed. The bottom line is we got to find permanent funding sources so that we're not dealing with the ebbs and flows of what our state budget currently provides. If I learned nothing else as a legislator, I learned that we rely too heavily on sales tax and income taxes to fund education, so we deal with fluctuations. And so we're putting together a group that is going to focus on one thing: identifying permanent funding sources for education in California. And we welcome your help if you want to work on that group. Please talk to Lupita or myself. So we know that there are challenges ahead. I think there are many opportunities ahead. If I could leave you with one message, it would be this: let us take up the opportunity as partners to do what's best for our kids. Let us stand side by side and say that we can serve all 6 million of our kids. I got criticized during the campaign for a bunch of things. A bunch of things. My kids once said, "Dad, how could they say those things about you?" I said, "Honey, don't believe everything you see or hear." But the one thing that stood with me from the campaign was a statement that someone made to me about students. And they said that we should only focus on the students who show promise and potential. I reject that notion. I think all students show promise and potential. I think it's our responsibility to help build and develop that potential. And I cannot do this job without you. My success or failure is tied to you. My journey is your journey. And if I'm not doing the things that you need, then I'm not doing the job. And so let us take up the mantle of partnership. Let us accept that we may not always agree, and that we can agree to disagree. And that when we have disagreements, that we put those behind us, and we look for the 1 or 2, 3, or 3 things that we think we can do on behalf of California's kids. I believe that education is a great equalizer, and I believe that every single one of our students deserves a great education. And I look forward to our work together to make that happen. Thank you so much, and I look forward to our work.